Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 1665. The topic is mindset and the title is The Uncomfortable Uncomfortable. So no, that wasn't a typo. So we're actually going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how to get uncomfortably uncomfortable. And we're going to discuss what that actually means. So I was talking with a fellow trainer, and we were discussing a client of theirs that had recently stopped their training sessions with the trainer and kind of went back to some old habits. And the client, the trainer, was basically just bummed and sad, that the person kind of went away from it. So we were discussing a little bit about what had happened and maybe why we thought that had happened. With the client, the trainer, they had been seeing in the new style of training that the trainer was teaching them that they were getting results. The client felt leaner, stronger, more confident. They said it, they saw it, in their performance. But they were going through the challenge of having to kind of change the way they thought about food, the way they approached their training. But what happened was life kind of struck. They ran into some problems. They had financial stress along with some other stresses, so they had to stop the training services. And unfortunately, the client went back to what they found comfortable in their old style of training and their old way of eating. They went back to a comfortable uncomfortable, and the client is now regressing. The trainer was bummed for the client and wanted to discuss kind of the experience, discuss my thoughts. And something that came up in the discussion was that for the client, their old nutrition and training was their emotional management system. It's what they would do in the past to manage their emotions, anxiety, stress, fears, worries. They would starve themselves and they would over-exercise with aerobic work. That was their way of trying to find control in life, was to control what they eat and just, blindly beat the crap out of themselves with running or like group classes where it's just kind of time-based, and everybody's just watching the clock and trying to move 1,000,000 miles an hour, but there's really no focus on the quality of what you're doing. So they went back to what was their comfortable, uncomfortable, because it was their way to manage emotions. They hadn't found a new emotional management system. So even though with the new style of training that the trainer was showing them, they were getting better results, they went back to what they found familiar, what they found comfortable. Now, if asked, I'm sure that client would be very offended that I am using the word comfortable. They're going to say, bullshit, you're telling me that eating nothing and running until I burn 1,000 calories an hour is comfortable. And I'm going to say, yes, I will. I'll say that. It's starving yourself and then just doing super intense, no technical aspect of training. That's an easy uncomfortable. It's an easy uncomfortable. That I know that's going to tick some people off, but it's an easy uncomfortable. You get to just blindly put in the work for 30 minutes or an hour. You don't have to pay attention to how well you're doing, so you don't get challenged in what you're doing in regards to how well you can do it. You're just doing it. It's just, can you survive? You don't have to build upon your current abilities. You don't have to question your current abilities. You don't have to challenge your current abilities. You're not having to work out in a new way that presents unique challenges. You're just working out in the way that you've always worked out, which is what got you what you've always gotten. So it's not going to get you anything new. And eating in a way that's just black and white rules. Just easy. Easy to follow, not easy to do, but again, it's familiar. It's what you've done before. And there's a martyrdom aspect to where, look at me, look how tough I am, I'm eating nothing. Aren't I so hardcore? Those are comfortable ways to make you feel like you're doing something, but they're not going to get you anything new. Yes, you're doing something, but you're not going to get something new. You're going to get what you've always gotten because that's what you always did. And you know that. So you're going back to what's comfortable. It's like a comfortable uncomfortable, or an uncomfortable comfortable, however you want to say it. It's uncomfortable to do it. I understand that, but it's a comfortable uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable level that you're willing to take on, wanting to take on, and you're okay with taking on. So you're doing what feels familiar. You're doing what feels comfortable, even if it, in the moment, I'm sure it feels uncomfortable. But it's a comfortable uncomfortable. Having an all or nothing mindset is a form of a comfortable uncomfortable. It's that same martyrdom type situation. It's everything has to be perfect or I'm not going to do it. And then you just don't have to do it sometimes. Because the majority of times in life, things aren't perfect. So you get to struggle, quote unquote, but not in a way that challenges deeper, truly uncomfortable issues. Often when we're faced with an issue that we want to change or need to change, we have the option of doing the deep, dirty, super self-challenging work. Or the work that, we get to say we feel like, I'm doing something, but it's not something new. It's not something that's challenging you. The comfortable uncomfortable is when you are quote unquote doing something, but it's not the deeper, scary stuff. Nutrition. People do this all the time with nutrition. They just find some kind of black and white rules, surface level rules, and I'm not going to eat any carbohydrates. It's not going to work long term. It's not going to be sustainable. It might be a temporary way to get where you want to get to, but you're eventually going to need to learn something else. If you just say, I'm not going to eat any carbohydrates, and that's all you do, well, you can still eat fats and proteins however you like. You don't have to address your meal schedule. You don't have to try to eat more during the day and less overeating for comfort at night, emotional comfort. You don't have to address emotional eating at all. You don't have to track anything. So there's a degree of sacrifice, but it's a surface level sacrifice. Same thing with training, where it's just busyness without concern of technique or quality. You burn a lot of calories. You get to feel busy. You get to feel like you're doing something. But it's not a something that's actually the best thing to do. I remember I had a client one time, she came in and told me that she wanted to lose weight and that her knees hurt. And I said, well, why don't we rehab those knees? So I showed her some stuff to do, and she's like, well, I don't think this is really going to work. Like when I was in the past, how I lost weight was I ran. And as polite as I could, I tried to point out that it didn't work. Like you say, okay, in the past, in order for me to lose weight, I ran. Yeah, but what happened? The weight came back. Right? Because you couldn't keep running because your knees hurt. So you're telling me you don't want to fix your knees, you just want to go back to running, which causes your knees to hurt, and then you have to stop running. Am I the crazy one here? Does that not feel like that isn't the best approach? You've already tried that. You already did running, and it didn't work, which is why you're here seeing me, because you want to lose weight again, because it didn't work. But you're telling me that that's what worked. I don't think I'm crazy. I think that what you're saying is crazy. So I think we need to try something different. She didn't like it. I explained it a lot nicer. But she didn't like that. She quit working with me because she didn't want to slow down. She didn't want to focus on the rehab work. She didn't want to focus on the deeper level, more dedicated stuff to fix her knees. So she went back to running. She went back to doing all the stupid crap that happened before. And of course, she lost a little bit of weight, but it came right back. Then she tried doing this thing, but then that didn't work. And da-da-da-da-da-da. Spiral of shit, basically. Because she wouldn't just go to the problem. If you have something you want to change, until you're willing to get truly uncomfortable. Until you're willing to dig deep into the work that challenges you, that questions you. The type of work that when somebody presents you with it, you get defensive. You know, like if I have somebody, they drink a bunch of beer, like say that 96 ounces of beer a night. And they're like, I want to get leaner. And I'm like, probably don't want to be drinking 96 ounces of beer at night. And they're going to say, well, you know, I'm not changing that. So how can I get leaner otherwise? I'm like, well, I mean, you could try to normalize your calories. You can get your protein in order. You can go to the gym, but you're still going to have really low testosterone. It's going to mess up your estrogen balance. You're not going to have great just internal like health. You're going to have possibly a lot of inflammation. You're missing out on calories that would actually give you better quality of energy, that would actually fuel the process of muscle building better. I mean, you can do some stuff around it to get better results than doing nothing around it. But that's probably something you want to deal with. Now, I, believe it or not, yes, I know, have the same kind of problems. We all have problems where we want something to change, but we don't want to dig too deep into it because it gets kind of messy, it gets uncomfortable, it gets emotional. But the problem is if we don't get to that uncomfortable, we won't make progress, or we'll continue to kind of cycle back and forth. We'll make some progress, fall behind, make some progress, fall behind. We get to constantly feel like we're quote-unquote doing something, but we're not actually getting anywhere. It's like running in a hamster wheel, right? Run, but you're right in place. If you're not progressing, if you keep progressing but then falling back into old habits, if you're continuing to spin in the wheel, consider asking yourself, am I surface level uncomfortable? Am I the level of uncomfortable that I'm comfortable with? Or am I willing to truly dig deeper, to get to the depths of addressing this problem so deep that it damn near makes me defensive? I get frustrated, I get angry, and I want to fight back against the advice. I want to fight back against what I think I should, like what somebody's telling me to do, or what I know I should do, but I just don't want to do. I just don't want to have to freaking do it because it's a lot of freaking work. I'm tired, I'm miserable. I don't want to have to get that much more tired and that much more miserable. So I'd rather just do surface level stuff. I'd rather do the comfortable and uncomfortable so I feel like I'm doing something even if I get nothing for it. Do you just want to appease the desire to do something? Or do you actually want to make a difference? It's a good question to ask yourself. It's a good thing to consider. If you truly want to make a difference, you have to get uncomfortably uncomfortable. I'm actually going to leave the podcast there, which sounds, to me, it feels like chaos, because basically I just stirred up a bunch of emotions, then I'm like, peace, see ya. But the reason why I want to do that is I want to spark some thought. I want people to think it through. Get into the depths a little bit. If you truly want to make a difference in something, some aspect of your life, whatever the goal might be, if you really want to accomplish it, you're going to have to get uncomfortably uncomfortable. You're going to have to do the stuff that you just don't want to do. You're maybe already aware of what it is and you just haven't been doing it because, gosh darn it, you're tired, you have no energy, you're just freaking, I don't want to do it. There has to be another way. I can just refuse that has to be the thing I have to do. Sometimes there might be another way. You have to read books, talk to experts, like deep dive into the topic, see if there's a different way. So, for example, an old school way of losing body fat for like a competition, if somebody was going to get on stage, would be fasted cardio, spending like an hour on a step mill in the morning before you eat or drink anything. That works. It's not ideal. for long-term health. It's not ideal for maintaining muscle tissue. It can actually negatively impact fat loss in the future. So it's something that kind of sort of like it works now, but screws you in the long run. There are much better ways to do it. So you might think, I don't want to have to do that. And as you read into it, you research and you look into it, and you're like, oh crap, there are some other options. They're also really uncomfortable, but I'll try them. And then in certain situations, the thing that feels truly uncomfortable, there is no other way around it. You got to do it. In either of those cases, what you decide to do will be uncomfortably uncomfortable. So if you don't do the fasted cardio, you still have to count calories, protein, work on meal timing, food selection. You still have to go to the gym. You have to food prep. You have to buy the groceries. I mean, there's still a lot of work you got to do. And you're going to be uncomfortable through all of that. So it's still an uncomfortable. But that's the key, is you have to get uncomfortably uncomfortable if you want things to change. If you continue to do a comfortable uncomfortable, familiar uncomfortable, if you continue to do the surface level, the things that allow you to say, look at me, look what I'm doing, but you know they're not the deep, grunt, dirty work. If you're truly not uncomfortable going through it, it's probably not going to change you. Growth is uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable because who and what you are now can't stay. Your body will fight that. If you have to become a new person, whether that's building new muscle tissue, building strength, building new character, building new life habits, if you have to become a new person, your current person is going to fight that. Because that's uncomfortable. It doesn't want to have to do all the work. Just leave me alone. That's the feeling we tend to get. But growth is uncomfortable. If you want to grow in life, you have to be willing to get uncomfortable. Are you uncomfortable? In the areas that you want to grow, are you uncomfortable? Are you willing to get uncomfortable? If you are, you can truly make progress. Don't fight it. Attack it. Embrace it. It's an opportunity to become better. I wish you the best of luck. If you think there's anything I can do to help, or if you have any questions, shoot me an email at brutalirongym@gmail.com. I appreciate you listening to the podcast. I want to make sure that you get everything and anything that you need from the podcast. Well, thank you for listening. If you want to share the podcast to help others, please do. That way we can just help people live their best life. And that would be from more people knowing about the podcast, more people listening to the podcast. So thank you to those who share it. Thank you to those who donate to support the podcast. You can do that on our website. The podcast does have high hosting costs on a bunch of different platforms. So thank you for the donations as they help go to cover some of those costs. Again, you can donate on our website if you want, www.brutalirongym.com. If you like the information we share in our podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and please follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.